The study meeting for June 7th, 2022 to order with a roll call. Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Bear.
Present.
Commissioner Walls. Present. Commissioner Kennedy.
Here.
Commissioner Duckham. Commissioner Pileski. Commissioner Alexander.
Here. Commissioner
Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Snell.
Here.
Chairman Shotwell.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Public comment guidelines for each individual will state their name, and you will have 3 minutes to address the board. You may only address the board once under this public comment opportunity and may not yield your time to others. Board members will not debate nor answer questions at this time. Public comment is open.
Public comment. Peter Bournemouth, 142 West Pearl Street. I want to speak just quickly on gun violence. I was talking to Mike Shirkey the other day out in front of Shupex. He was gathering petition signatures, and he told me that it was a problem of public health. Now, I don't deny that COVID undoubtedly has created some public health issues in our young people. I don't deny that sitting there and looking at a screen for 18 hours a day may create some public health issues. This younger generation is the first generation that's living in this virtual reality. We grew up with books, and then there was TV, and then there were computers, and then there were cell phones. They're living this. So I don't deny that that may have public health issues and mental health issues. But the problem happens to be the guns. All right? Anybody who is 18 should not be allowed to buy a semi-automatic weapon because they're not allowed to drink. When I was young, we were allowed to drink at age 18. They took that right away because of the fact of automobiles and drunk driving, right? An automobile accident usually will only kill one person because 80% of the cars on the road only have one individual in it, the driver. An automatic weapon, as we see every day, kills 18, 19. People shoot hundreds of rounds. Why is an 18-year-old allowed to buy this weapon if they are not allowed to drink? I want to go to an item on the agenda, number 6, Liberty Environmentalist. It's the landfill. They're going into another phase. I want to point out that this landfill sits in a U on the Grand River, the upper Grand River watershed, that they import 100 tons of fly ash a day out of Ohio. That this is being stored there. We are creating a poison egg at the headwaters of the Grand River, and someday in the future, if this starts leaking out, you are going to be responsible. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Seeing or hearing none. Approval of the minutes of the May study session. We have a motion and support. Any corrections, deletions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Duly carried. Item number 5, Jackson College Board of Trustees, a discussion and feedback session. John, sure, please. And if I'm not mistaken, both mics work, correct? Yeah, both of them. So
Well, we're only going to need one, pretty much. Hi, Jim.
okay, just offering.
Thank you for having us here this morning. Good morning to all of you. It's great to see some familiar faces. I'm Donna Lake, and I'm one of the Board of Trustees at Jackson College. And John Christ is the chair of the Board of Trustees at the college. He's also here this morning. This is Rose Mercier. She is actually our consultant working with us on governance policy. And she will be the one that will be facilitating some questions that we would like to ask you, and just kind of, it's not like, okay, it's your turn, your turn, your turn. We'd like to just help you feel comfortable in just responding to any of the questions, just to give us some feedback about our college, your college, and as owners, you are the owners of our college, as are the people in the back as well. So, sorry, Keith Book is the executive assistant for the president, and he is taking notes. Would you like me to ask about the? Okay, all right. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Rose, and we'll get started. Thank you.
To facilitate
Stay
this a
there.
little bit, Rose, if I may, commissioners, please stay with the questions, and at the end, we will ask Mr. Chris and
Donna.
Donna, I'm sorry, Donna.
It's okay. It's been a while.
Questions also that we have questions about that we've been asked with our constituency, if we may.
Certainly.
But let's stay with the questions, please.
All right.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right, so it is a pleasure to be here this morning. The work that the board is doing currently is because it is, one of its roles is to set strategic direction for the college into the future. And part of its looking ahead is to really talk to those on whose behalf it's governing, which is the citizens of Jackson in this community. So these questions really are helping the board provide input into their thinking about what direction they should be setting. So there's three main questions that we have. The first one is around what challenges do you see will be facing the community in the next 3 to 5 years? I'm sure you've probably had lots of conversations about this, so.
Commissioners, feel free to
Yes,
raise your
sir.
hand
Yeah.
and be acknowledged by them.
The obvious, most pressing challenges right now that I don't see being any relief coming anytime soon is inflation and the costs that our citizens are experiencing in Jackson. We're not a high-income community for the most part, and a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck, so it's important that the price per credit hour remains affordable. That would be what biggest challenge I see. Also, at the county here, we are really struggling in certain departments to staff appropriately. And I know you guys have partnered in the past a little bit with pilot programs, but I'd like to see that be a little more effective, a little more communication maybe with our HR department as to not only what we need now, but what we foresee being needed in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And potentially making not necessarily 4-year programs, but even a 1-year or 2-year program to get people from our community into positions that actually are decent paying jobs that we're having a hard time filling. So, a
Okay.
couple ideas.
Thank you. Yeah, that is a big theme. I should say that we've been talking to a lot of groups in the community, and that both of these things that you raised are pretty common themes. So yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Strategically, we've witnessed over the last years the loss of people who are driven towards a trade career. And recently, the community college chose to divest itself in the mechanics trade and sell a lot of its equipment and get out of that business. Was that to get rid of the pathway for the internal combustion engine and move towards electrical motors and engines and training people to work on those? Or do you have a different plan for assisting people as they go forward with the electrical motor process going the next 25 years?
Well, that was not an easy decision, but the main part of that, well, there were a few components to it, but mainly, Jackson College right now is looking at all of its pathways, and it is trying to make sure that when our students leave with their degree or their certificate, have a wage that will sustain them, that will not put them below the poverty level. Mechanics is was one of those areas where that was the case. It is also an extremely expensive program, and the materials and the machinery becomes outdated very quickly. And those were probably the two biggest reasons. Do you have anything, John? Okay, so that's why. And to keep those tuition costs down, we have to look at all of those variables in each of the programs. So that's why.
So, yeah, so,
Darius, go ahead.
So one of the conversations I actually just had, just with the constituent just yesterday, as it relates to your question, is just transportation, as of lately is becoming an issue just due to, inflation, the price of gas and things of that nature. So I think that's a conversation worth having as well.
okay.
I agree. Darius was one of my fourth grade students, just so
Yeah.
you know.
No, it's very surreal for me to have to raise my hand and then be addressed.
Yes, Darius.
So there's,
Anybody else?
yes, I see.
I missed.
Another hand,
Oh,
I can't read
Go
that.
ahead, Earl.
Donna, good to see you.
Good
Thanks
to
for
see
being
you
here
as well,
today.
thank you.
John, good to see you too. So I've got more than two,
Go ahead. Have
and
it.
already a couple of them have been noted. One being the growth of inflation eroding, not only dealing with the tuition at the college, but what we're seeing is it erodes our ability to hire people, provide services at the governmental level and all around. So that's problematic for everybody everywhere. And if we're not careful, we're going to see that be part of our economy for a few years until we can beat it. The other thing I think I heard was an aging workforce. In other words, workforce limitations, I guess I would say, is a community problem for us. And I think Jackson is, growing more old at a greater rate than perhaps other communities. But I have other things that are on my list. One is infrastructure issues that we're seeing. Roads and other infrastructure are really problematic for us. Not necessarily the college's problem, but you wanted to know what the community faced, and that's what I would see the community faces. I see increasing public demand for services of all types, okay? And when you have an older population or a less educated population, I think you have a greater demand for public services. I think we also see limited funding options for local units of government here in Michigan. Basically, it's a millage or a fee, and that's pretty much it to raise revenues for your needs. I mean, we're going to hear later on today about a need that wants to be filled, and we're going to hear, we've been hearing about a jail that needs to be built. That's an infrastructure issue and a millage potentially. And what that leads me to then is the potential, the greater potential for intergovernmental competition for funding. Because if Jackson College decides to go for a millage, or some other authority, Lifeways, any other authority that can provide services, when they want a millage, and if the county or the township or the school district wants a millage, there's competition.
We're aware of that.
Okay, I know you're well aware of that, okay? And so I'll say publicly, what I've felt privately for many years is that we have too many units of government in our county, and our county is not unique. We have over a dozen public school districts, we have townships, villages, cities, all in competition for a limited dollar.
Right.
That is a fundamental problem here in Michigan. It's not just us, but is a fundamental problem that needs addressing, or else we're going to fall behind other states, I think.
We haven't passed a millage since 1964 or 5, I can't remember, which to your tuition, we have no choice but to increase in our tuition because we can't get a millage passed.
Yeah.
That's the only way we're gonna,
What's the millage I see on my property tax bill? It says
It hasn't, it has not,
Increase?
right,
Okay.
right. We have, but we have not passed a millage since the 60s.
I guess my final point, thank you, Mr. Chair, for your indulgence, is just the general political polarization that tends to stagnate things generally, not just here, but everywhere. That's a problem that we are facing as elected officials. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for letting me go more than 2.
Thank you, Earl. Yes, Tony?
Excuse me. You just mentioned millage, and yeah, 1964 was when the Jackson Community College operating millage was approved in 1964. And that millage has no expiration date. That just goes on forever. I don't understand how that happens. I need to talk to my representatives in Lansing. You're still collecting millages from Jackson citizens. The amount of your millage has gone down because of the Headley Act.
Correct.
So you started out at 1.4372 mills a year, and you're down to 1.139 mills per year. That's a lot of millage, a lot of tax, in my opinion. What can you do to reduce that? You have to every year go back and take some action. When you review this every year, have to have it reviewed before end of September. You want to consider giving the taxpayers a break? Our taxpayers' incomes have gone down, and yet nobody else wants their income to go down. If my income goes down, why do I have to keep paying the same amount to you? I don't have the resources to pay that. So I've heard from my constituents questioning why does, I guess it's state statute, I've gotten information from our chairman, but when you called yourself a community college, people understood it.
And we still
When
are.
you changed the name to Jackson College, a lot of people no longer understand, why are you taking community money?
We are still a community college, and we have no plans to ever to have that change. But because of some laws that were passed, we are able to provide, we have one baccalaureate in energy at Jackson Community College, or Jackson College. And because of that, that name change allowed us to bring that baccalaureate into the community college. We've been trying desperately to get a BSN degree into the community colleges. Dan Phelan has spent probably 17 years up in lobbying for that, and I know you're well aware of that, Earl, and to save our taxpayers a lot of money so that they don't have to go to the four-year institutions to pay for that same degree that we could easily provide for our students. So I can answer that one. I don't think we need to get into a debate about the millage right now, but I will very quickly tell you, yes, everybody's income is going down, but that inflation definitely touches everything at the college in the way of, there's nothing it doesn't touch. That continues to go up. So, anyway, that I can tell you.
I'm going to go to some historical time. Back when I attended Jackson Community College and received my degree, we were a macro community college where upon completion of an associate's, you could then attend any state college and they would recognize the associate's degree, the credits that you had done, and that allowed me to attend Ferris State, and then it even allowed me to attend Ball State down in Indiana. Is that pathway still there for people, and do you promote the associate's degree like we used to, or is it more career path oriented, say
It's
computer
both.
science
I
certificates?
mean, we
and-
definitely, we need those skills, so the certificates are invaluable, as we all know. We need those skills traits. But yes, we definitely want our it's a part of what we need to do as a community college to have our completion rate. So yes, we want people to get those associate's degrees. And yes, it's also crucial that we work with these other state universities so that our credits do transfer. And that's something that we do. We work with those other universities to make sure that our credits are transferring.
Curious?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I hate to jump backwards just for one question,
Okay.
if that's okay. So how does our millage compare to other college millages around the state?
We're low,
Okay.
very low.
Okay. And then finally, just now jumping forward to the first question there, you mentioned that we have one bachelorette program, is that correct?
Yeah, there are 5 that are allowed within the state
Okay.
for community college to put into their programs. But
Okay.
Energy is ours.
And then do we plan to move forward with the additional 4 that we could have?
Well, one of them is marine biology, so we won't definitely do anything with that.
Okay.
That's up at Northwestern in Traverse City. And we had culinary, but the program was suffering, and it was also at the ISD in Adrian. And that pathway has been taken off of our course pathway. Cement, so we aren't doing cement, and I can't remember number 5.
Anything in health at all by chance?
Well, we're trying to get the BSN.
Oh, yes, and you did
That's
just say
that's
that,
what.
yeah. Okay.
But if it happens, the walls are going to crumble somewhere. It's really a battle, because the big universities, just U of M to start with.
Yeah.
It's nearly impossible to fight that university, just as one example.
Sure.
And am I right in that?
U of M and Wayne State, and even Albion College, my alma mater, opposed the 4-year BSN. And I talked to Albion, I said, we don't have a nursing program, what are you complaining about? And their complaint was just more competition in the 4-year degree granting realm. That was their, I thought.
It's like
I don't know.
banging your head against the wall. So, I'm sorry,
we
we're
do-
kind of
That's
off
great.
track.
That's okay.
Sorry.
No, but I think it's going to, and the question about millage, I won't say this very loudly, is really about part of what the board is trying to do, is to say what role can the college play in meeting some of the challenges I've identified that actually makes it worth, so that when, your constituents are looking at this and going like, yeah, I understand why we're doing this, right? Like, so that's kind of the next question, is building on some of the things you've identified, which is, so where's the college, what do you see, right, from your perspective? What role can the college play in addressing some of the challenges you've identified?
Well, I would hope the college could be the leader in fundamental education and give people a career path start. I look at the community college as, and this is not derogatory in any way, but an extension of high school. And when I went, it helped me not only decide that I wanted to be a retail salesperson, but also allowed me to take allied health classes, anatomy and physiology and applied nursing and those type of classes, so then I could become a certified podorthist, which was a very finite pathway to go, to the point that only Ball State and Northwestern in Chicago offered the program at the time. So, but JC, through its program, was able to assist me, but also gave me a well-rounded education, because I worked with Mark Schottmeyer and Jack Takazian and the economic group to really understand economic fundamentals. And I would think that that would be the pathway that I would come out to you, we would do a survey, you would find my weaknesses, you would find my strengths, and you would recommend a pathway to me. And Gene Calvert did a wonderful job doing that, and Russ Hansen and that whole staff, and I really appreciate what they did.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of focus. And I live with a woman who also, as you know,
I do.
followed the exact same pathway, but she went to Grand Valley. So I think a community college has to be the one that turns the key, if you could, to start the process. And that's why I'm worried about the mechanical side of it. I have a friend who makes an incredible income working on heavy equipment, and he spent 2 years at JC in the auto mechanics garage learning how to take cars apart.
Yeah.
And there's a base path that a community college, I think, has to lead.
Yeah.
And I think we look at technique and the fundamentals of what he's done, and Mr. John Cox and his company. And Corey cites the need at the county level. Well, the need at Jackson County is for equalization officers was our latest situation. And the pathway of fundamental levels within that and that type of schooling, and that can be come out of high school, set for a semester, become a level 1, and then it's just a pathway of working, right? Writing your level 2 and writing your level 3 and actually doing that, and that pathway is a considerable income.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I would think that and that's needed in all 80-plus counties in Michigan, those staff, and townships, and cities, and municipalities, and villages to create that person who can do that work. So there is a demand there,
No
for
doubt.
that type of stuff.
And we met with the manufacturers. And we talked about that, of course, at great length. And they have their own program where they are certifying their mechanics themselves, which is working very well for them, which is also another reason why we've kind of pulled aside. But it doesn't mean that we don't want to still partner with them. So we are working to figure out a way. Jeremy Frew at the college is working with the manufacturers group to see, okay, what can we do that's feasible as far as a partnership? So, Darius?
So just, excuse me, to piggyback up off of the last comment there, my question is, does Jackson College have, I guess, an individualized major program? So if there's someone that comes to Jackson College and says, down the road, I want to be a doctor. So are there a number of classes that they can kind of put together to create, like some type of pre-med program to start, if you will, and then they can take those credits
The
transferred
sciences,
to?
yes. And we have, did we get them their sheets on the, okay. You have the different pathways listed on that sheet. And what's really, this is also something that Jackson College is very proud of. How many years ago did we start our navigators with our lower? 6 years ago. Our ratio of our student navigators, formerly counselors, formerly whatever you want to call them, advisors, they're now called navigators. And 5 or 6 years ago, we had a ratio of 1 student to 1,500, or 1 counselor at that time to 1,500 students. This is another reason tuition goes up. But for the betterment of our students, it's now a ratio of 1 navigator to 250 to 200 students. Those navigators are in touch with the professors or the adjuncts of each one of the students, and they let that navigators know if there's a student that's failing, and it is the navigator's job to get in there and find out what's going on. And also, they must touch basically that student 3 times per semester. That's unheard of. But boy, do we have people across the nation looking at our benchmark for that and raising our success.
So how did you create those navigators then?
What do you mean?
Well, those navigators needed an educational source.
They came in with
Fundamentally,
it, right. They were,
Did JC train them, or?
for
you had to
exactly
hire-
what we wanted, of course we did, yeah.
Okay, so again, there's a pathway that you've created within the organization.
Sure.
For a career
Right.
fundamentals. And what will occur, hopefully, not any knock against you, but these other organizations will then hire them away from you.
Oh, that happens a lot.
Yeah, they'll be able to go,
This guy used to steal our,
well, that's why they put you on the board, so you'd stop. Yeah.
sorry. Off track again, I think. Sorry, Rose.
No, it's good. That's, So maybe just, I'll go to the last
Yep.
question
Go
and
ahead.
then turn it over to you and John to answer questions to you.
All right.
So the third question is really is if you think outside of maybe just the fundamental role of the college in terms of providing education, providing pathways to careers, are there other ways in which, or other opportunities to support positive change in the community that the college can play?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
I'll try to. Are there other opportunities, sort of outside of the obvious role of the college, right? Other opportunities that the college has to provide or to make a positive impact in the community? Other ways that it can contribute?
No, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So that's kind of a hard question for me because I've seen a number of programs, events that are going on around the Greater Jackson County community with a Jackson College logo on it. So you're in support of a lot of things that are going on, to the point of for some programs and boards that I've sat on and sit on, Jackson College has donated towards certain programs and events. So you seem to be very much connected to the community in that way, just being of support in really whatever way the college can. So to continue to add to that, I'm curious how we would continue to go about doing that.
It's not necessarily a question of adding to it, but I think what I'm hearing you say, or maybe inferring from what you're saying, is that is actually valuable.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah,
Yes.
providing those events. And I think, just as an example, a couple of things that came up yesterday was just in terms of the, the facilities. So the Potter Center, the arts, the arts events, the places for community to gather. So saying, yeah, those are valuable, and really exploiting those for the benefit of the community is something is valued. So.
Yeah, so in adding to that, I think one thing I guess the college could do is just make that more aware to the people, like, hey, we're more than just your local college. We help and do whatever we can everywhere. As an example, at my church on Sunday, they were kind of going through their announcement period, and they read the announcement about Jackson College partnering with the city and providing classes at the Martin Luther King Center. And that I think it was like a business entrepreneurial
Yes.
program. And after they read that announcement an announcement about this got like a standing ovation.
Really?
Because the community was saying, wow, look at this. Now we have no excuse why we can't finish a program when the class is offered next door. So I think things like that, as long as we continue to allow the community to know that, hey, we're here, we're working, what do you want from us, how can we help? We're literally putting school in your backyard, what else can we do? So I thought that was just phenomenal. I thought it was
Thank you.
phenomenal.
And I noticed on your fact sheet that you all have, when it has the different campuses, that the King Center needs to be added to that list.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's that,
Sure.
so yes.
Coming from a parochial school background, and I was involved in the school board at St. John's Elementary, and we were having a bullying issue. And it was decided that they would match the kids up, a fourth grader with a first grader, a fifth grader with a second grader,
Mentors.
to create a partnership with the kids, so that way they would have more of a relationship. And then when we attend high school, we see that the kids have to do 10 hours of community service or 40 hours of community service, depending on where they're going to school, to help begin to generate in their mind volunteerism in the community. Is there a way that the community college could instill something like that? To receive an associate's degree, you need to have participated in 10 hours of community service, or a mentoring program where you help third graders read, or anything like that? Is there
Well,
an opportunity to do that?
I don't know exactly what mentoring programs they have going on right now. I know that they have our staff and faculty have to participate in community service, But interestingly enough, last night, our last meeting that we had yesterday was with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and they asked if we could look at designing a program exactly like that. That would be a pathway for students in Jackson, and I think that would be phenomenal. So you've just kind of added another checklist to, yes, let's do something like that, which I think is phenomenal, and which is why we're here. We want to hear these ideas and things that are feasible for us to do, and that would be accepted. So, thank you for that.
I just think that we all see the numbers of service clubs dwindling and aging, if nothing else.
Right. Yep.
And I think that putting that mindset into our youth, that,
Yes.
volunteerism in your community is part of your life,
Right,
because this is your home, wherever you choose it to be.
right.
So, yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I was thrilled with that idea, yes.
Thanks. And you may do this already. I know the credit unions have attempted at it, but you're talking about a community need, and something I notice in my community, the district I represent, is a lack of fundamental knowledge of financial literacy. Understanding credit scores, understanding annual percentage rates, understanding why someone, for instance, gets a car at 17.8% compared to 1.9%, and what people need to do, what having that difference, what that affects you in a monthly payment, how to understand a balance sheet, simple accounting principles. I think you might be shocked at how many people in Jackson don't have the basic knowledge in that, and if we could offer that to junior high and high school kids in a more standard process than we currently do, I think that would be a benefit to the community.
Yes, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. It was interesting. It was another comment, just in the Big Brothers Big Sisters conversation was around, and it was more from those who were there who said, I was in Jackson College, if I had learned at that time just kind of the economics of
Survival.
of how to survive. Yes, I have, a degree or an associate's degree, or yes, I plan to move on, but just understanding how the economics of the world and how finance works
Yeah.
would have been really valuable. So I thought that was an
It would help
interesting
me.
perspective.
We offered at one time a class called Consumer Math, and our final
No idea.
end project was a year's budget, living on, we were supposed to make 25 cents more than minimum wage. And you had to create a budget and outfit a household and rent an apartment. And it actually made arrangements with Art Main for us to go and talk to a lender to understand what it would take to buy a car. And we had arrangements through the credit union to go, and they had made arrangements for us to come and talk to them about the information you have to bring to a loan to understand what's responsible with it. And that was a one-semester class. We learned to balance a checkbook and all of that kind of stuff. And it's still very helpful, because you can sit and read, like Corey said, you can sit at a Big Brothers Big Sisters board meeting and be able to follow along on the budget when they're talking
Right,
about it.
right.
Okay, anything else before I invite John to
Oh, John?
take over? Yes.
When we talk about what the JC board can do, I mean, when I look at its members, you two in particular, you are leaders of the community, I suppose, in as much as we are supposed to be leaders of the community. And I guess one thing I would suggest is that the college is kind of in a position, as the chair noted, to be a driver in how education is provided in Jackson County. And whether that's in discussions with your other institutions of higher learning, but I'm thinking more particularly with the intermediate school district and the other local school districts.
They meet monthly.
Okay, so, but you're in a position to drive how to improve public education here in Jackson County, because JC is publicly supported in a large extent. So that, I would simply offer that as a something that would be worthwhile, I think, to look upon as a
They do that.
goal of your board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Darius?
So I have an additional question. Does any of your programs, are they provided online at all?
Oh, we are hybrid right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so yes, absolutely. Yeah, thank you, COVID, for that.
Yes.
Just to also piggyback on a comment I mentioned earlier as well, is I think that one thing that we could do is just making sure, again, when talking with the community, just letting them know that we have services that we can create a program, so to speak, to help meet the needs of what the people are doing, because I'm also at the Jackson High School. I coach track and field there, so I have an opportunity every year to talk with the kids about college and what that experience is like, the whole piece. And so a lot of kids are pursuing associate's degrees at Jackson College, which is great, but then I have a great number of kids that are pursuing an associate's degree and beyond, but they're going elsewhere to get an associate's degree because they feel like the program that they're looking for, they can't find at Jackson College. So if we could some way center that message and saying, hey, if you come here, we can find or try to create a program that will help you in your post associates programs. So I think that would help kind of bridge that gap as well.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay. Oh,
Change gears.
exit stage
Oh,
left.
sorry. Jeremy?
Yeah, I was just curious.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A few questions. One, I was curious, obviously, when it comes to going to college, most students get themselves there, but obviously I think that one role that the community college can play is recruitment. For all the students that don't already presume they're going to go to college, what can we do to reach those individual students? I think that's a niche that our community college can play. With that, advertising the opportunities and the solutions that our community already has, like we mentioned earlier, the cost of transportation. Right now at $5 a gallon, I don't know who wants to drive out to the college, but students can jump on a bus for $1.
Oh, yeah.
And that's been a solution that I think JED has been providing our college for years.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that. Recently, I think just in the last year or two, there's another program with the state of Michigan providing tuition assistance to older people. I believe it's, and by older, it's over 25. Yeah.
What's that make me?
Yeah, this is what over 25 without a degree, and there's a lot of help with the state of Michigan to be able to get that.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned that to other people over the last year or two, and no one knew about that.
Okay.
And it's basically, I don't want to quote it, but it's essentially free college if you're over 25 without a degree.
Yeah.
And people just don't know that. What are we doing to advertise these things, Because a lot of people know the problems of why they're not going to college. They can't afford to get out there. They don't have time it won't work around their schedule. They don't, can't afford it. But what are we doing to let them know that these problems have been solved? Realistically, when we're talking about the average person that's living and working in the city of Jackson earning under $34,000, almost everyone is going to qualify for free college in some way, shape, or form. These are problems that have been solved. What are we doing to let people know that we have these solutions? Let's come get in classes, and let's make sure that you're going to be, increasing our average wage over that $34,000 over the next decade or two.
Right. Thank you. I myself was not aware of that, which I'm not a navigator, so I don't know all that stuff. But the word is in our notes, so we will work on that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay. You get to answer questions now.
You get to help me up here.
I'm supposed to help you.
You're going to help me.
So what am I going to help you with? Okay. Any questions that you may have of us? I guess before we start there, let me just thank the commissioners and thank you for what you're doing. To us, this is very important, and we plan on meeting a lot of people. We will get back to you somehow, some way. We're starting to figure that out right now, what all the information is about. For example, one of the items that I keep bringing up is very interesting, is that we want to meet with everybody. Now, when you meet with everybody, you go in all kinds of directions. We're waiting to meet with the farmers. That will be a very interesting conversation. Where are we going to go with that? Because I know a lot of times they've asked the college to be an agricultural part of the community. So this is what we're after. This is exactly what we're after, is what does the owners, you, want in Jackson College? And so this is going to drive the board in the direction which the community, again, all the requests that have been made by all individuals, of course, will not be all planted into one.
Yeah, we can't meet everything.
Can't do everything on it, but we're trying to get themes or pathways, if you want to call them, or ideas to move in that direction. So I guess at this point, we're basically done with this section unless you have some questions for us directly. Darius?
Just a couple of additional questions. So as a track and field guy myself, I see you have the cross-country team, which is great. I ran cross-country in high school and found out that I was not a distance runner. But nonetheless, are there any plans to bring a track and field team to the college?
Not right now, but that doesn't mean that it won't happen. Baby steps to introduce, because we didn't have anything for quite a while.
Yeah.
So
And
we're
by the way,
bringing it back.
That was very tough to get through the board. Because stop and think about the equipment, baseball,
It's costly.
softball, and all this, fields, you could have fields, all that is very expensive, so that was a real discussion. But the other side of that, the plus side of that is it brought students here to Jackson College, just outside Jackson itself.
Right.
And so forth. So we're trying to look at the full picture, what it would do. That's a possibility. I can't say yes or no on that in regard to that.
Okay. Then also, similar to that note, does the college have any on-campus clubs or anything like that?
Oh, tons.
Okay.
We have our Infinity groups, which is made up so that we can touch all the different diverse populations. LGBT square, I always forget something, and I apologize, I never get that acronym right. Our Men of Merit Sisters of Strength.
Oh, that's right.
We have that. The Latinos, Pacific Islanders, Asian, there's 9 of them.
Yeah.
Help me.
I'm trying to help you. And what they do basically is that the management consults with them on what do you need or how do you think and what, because when you go to a school or someplace, you really want to be included. Well, if your culture is totally different than what is there, you're going to meld into that culture or just say, I can't go with that. So these 9 different organizations, which are all part of the college, financed by the college, are asking that question.
Yeah.
What can we do to help your native Indians, for example?
there's another
They have
one.
another one?
We also have a Bible study group.
Bible?
Christian. The list is long.
Sure.
So yes, we do, I guess, to answer your question, Darius.
Okay. Now, are there any clubs that require a certain GPA?
No.
No? Okay. And then lastly, just as a suggestion, I'm not sure if you do this or not, but one of the things that my alma mater, Spring Arbor University, does for all of the
Well,
Yes, we have done that until
Orientation.
COVID hit. We were doing that until COVID hit.
yeah. Yep. You bet. Anything else? Tony?
Responding from your comment about all of the different organizations on campus, I have a problem with some of that. This nation is too divided. Too many, we identify this way, hate the group that identifies this way. too much hating back and forth because we keep dividing people. This nation's not going to be successful until we unite people.
No, I couldn't agree more.
Keep treating people, letting people say, well, I'm different. I get these special things. Well, I'm different. I get these special things, these different special things. We need to tell people we're all just people. I'm a follower of Dr. Martin Luther King. I love his I Have a Dream speech. Dream for the day my children will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And yet we keep having all of these organizations that are doing nothing but looking at the color of the skin. That's not good for anybody. And in my opinion, we need to stop that. We need to start looking at ourselves as we're all together. We're all Americans. So what can we all do as Americans to make each individual better, to make our nation better? My only comment is just stop dividing people.
Okay, thank you.
Corey?
Yep, I'd just like to thank you all for your work. I do view the college as a valuable asset to the community. There's a lot of kids that wouldn't get a higher education if it wasn't there, so I'd like you all to know that we're thankful for your work, and I'm also thankful that you cared enough to take our input today.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for giving us the time.
Yes.
We thought, how are they going to do this during their meeting? So thank you very, very much for allowing us in and letting us be a part of it today. We are going to be meeting as a full board and along with the leadership team in August, and we've already had one session where we talked about our previous meetings together, so your meeting will be included with the notes from the other meetings that we've had. You're our last one for right now.
Yeah, for right now.
Then we'll start back up again after summer when everybody's schedules are a little wacky, so it's really hard to get people together during the summer. But Darius, what church do you go to? We would love to come in and talk. And I think we know who to call.
All right.
Yeah, so Keith Book will probably want to touch base and just find out who our contact person, or should we just call the church and tell them Darius sent us?
Yeah, do that.
Darius sent us.
We would love to come in, and churches, and not just your church, but we're interested in other churches, so if anybody else thinks their church would like us to come in, we'd love to be able to come in and do the same thing, just to sit down with your members or whomever. So, it's been an invaluable meeting. We thank you for your input, and we appreciate you being candid with us. That's exactly what we want. You can't do anything different if you don't hear both sides, so we appreciate that very, very much from everybody. So,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming, and we appreciate it, the conversation.
Thank you.
Okay.
So did I. Thank you.
Liberty Environmentalist, Region 2 Planning Commission Letter of Consistency. Can the Director of DPW explain this, please? Oh, wait, that's Mike. Grant coming?
Good morning. The Liberty Environmentalist Incorporated, or Liberty Landfill, reviewed its paperwork for Phase 5 of the Liberty Environmentalist Landfill and noticed that it never received a letter of consistency with the Jackson County Solid Waste Management Plan for expansion. They maintain that they got that permission from the County Board of Public Works back in 2015 regarding the landfill expansion, and that the expansion was included in the 2016 amendment of the Solid Waste Management Plan. Consequently, the Liberty Landfill contacted Jeff Snyder, Board of Public Works Chair, requesting a letter of consistency. Mr. Snyder had no record that that proposed expansion went through the Board of Public Works in 2015 and decided that it should go through the entire siting and criteria process outlined in the solid waste management plan, and therefore he contacted the designated planning agency and asked staff to put together a consistency report with a recommendation to the Board of Public Works. This was done with his input and presented to the Board of Public Works on May 9th, recommending that the proposed expansion is in compliance with the Jackson County Solid Waste Management Plan. The current situation is that the designated planning agency staff concluded that the application for Phase 5 of the Liberty Environmental Landfill is consistent with the Solid Waste Management Plan, and therefore they recommended that the Jackson County Board of Public Works find Phase 5 of the Liberty Environmental Landfill consistent with the 2016 amendment of the Solid Waste Management Plan, and that the Jackson County Board of Jackson County Board of Commissioners shall, within 45 days of receiving the Board of Public Works recommendation, review at a public meeting the request for determination of consistency. And so that's why we're here before you today. The Jackson Board of Public Works did review the recommendation during its May 9th meeting, agreed with it, and directed staff to draft a letter of consistency for approval by the Jackson County Board of Commissioners, and staff did draft that letter, which you have before you, and is requesting its approval.
Go ahead, Tony.
If the, one letter says it was approved by the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality on April 9, 2018. If it was, can we see that document?
It was approved by the Board of Commissioners. I've got a copy of the plan right here. You can get it off of the website.
Okay. I'm just surprised that these things weren't followed through. A drain commissioner says that has no record that the proposed expansion went through the Board of Public Works in 2015. If there's no record of it, if there's no record of the proposed expansion, can it be presented to them? How did the designated planning agency conclude that the application is consistent with the requirements? If we don't have documentation on it, when will that documentation be presented?
Documentation was presented in the form of a letter dated June 12th, 2015, and a package of site plans dated June 18th of 2015, which the Board of Public Works did look at its meeting on May 9th to come up with its recommendation for consistency.
Okay, so the next step is this board has to establish within 45 days, a public meeting to review this request?
Correct.
Thank you.
Do you have any comments?
Yeah, I would just comment that this is going through the process, obviously study session, then committee, then full board. We have 45 days, as Grant indicated, and the Board of Public Works has met, has approved, and recommended approval to the board here, so we're going through that process.
Do we have to have a public hearing?
No, Grant, there's not a call for a public hearing on this, is there?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, I was going to say, I didn't believe the law required that at all.
Hold on.
No, we don't have to have a public hearing. It's not part of the law.
The Jackson County Solid Waste Management Plan states that there be that within 45 days, that the, let me get back to that, shall review at a public meeting, a request for the determination of consistency. It doesn't say anything about there being a published public hearing.
Well, I'm confused because I'm getting conflicting information here.
Well,
If Mike says the state law doesn't mandate the public meeting, but our county waste management policy does require it.
No, the policy says public meeting, not public hearing.
Public meeting, sorry.
Yes, this qualifies as a public meeting of review. Study session does. The standing committee will qualify as a public meeting of review. The Tuesday night meeting at 7 o'clock will qualify as a public meeting of review. So the public will have 3 opportunities to see and read this. Tony, it's not a public hearing, but a public meeting. It's the definition of the word.
I understand.
Okay.
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Anything else, sir?
Yes. Under this cover letter from Region 2, you get down to item 3, analysis D. Approving the letter of consistency will conclude a process begun back in 2015, and allow Liberty Landfill to move forward with Phase 5. Are they not currently using, and have they not been moving forward with Phase 5?
They've constructed Phase 5, but they have not started to operate it yet.
They constructed this 4 or 5 years ago? Went through that expense and they're not using it?
They need to go through the process of getting this letter of consistency before they can get an operating permit.
Okay, that's where this still confuses me, because it says they thought they had the operating permit, they thought they had everything finalized. So if they thought they had everything finalized, why did they not operate it?
Because their business, Tony, their business plan called for them to begin operation in 2022. They didn't need to, so they did construction up until this time. They built the project up until now, and now they're at the point of operation, and operation is different than construction.
Of course.
So that's the reason why they're at this point, and they've changed professional staff, and the professional staff reviewed all their documents and found that they did not have this within their documents, and so they came back to the county and asked them to follow through on what we were supposed to do, and we are absent of what we were supposed to do, so we're doing our part right now, so that way they can go forward.
That explanation fills in some blanks for me. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Snell.
Thank you. So whatever happened, why it happened, what didn't happen, at the end of the day, if we don't approve this, what happens?
They wouldn't be able to get their permit from the Department of Environmental, Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy to operate Phase 5.
And then what happens? I mean, where does this stuff go?
It would have to go to another landfill in the state.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this is going to follow the full process, and we'll all get another shot of it. Yes, sir.
Can I ask an additional question? So this is just to follow up on the preceding question. Would that then mean that our landfill would then close?
Well, yeah, once they didn't have any more capacity, then they wouldn't be able to accept anything more, I would think.
Okay. So, and just for my understanding, this is allowing us to dig deeper for the landfill, or what is this doing?
This allows for them to open up a new part of the landfill as they're closing other sections.
Okay. So my final question, again, this is just for my clarification. So we've heard a comment during a public comment about the concern of any water contamination. I know that there's proceedings and things and avenues that have been built within it to allow us for that not to happen. But are we at any, should there be any cause for concern as we try to open up other areas? Is this closer to the water, or what's going on with that?
Well, that's why it goes through this approval process. We went through and looked at the criteria for siting of solid waste management facilities within the solid waste management plan, and it met the criteria to the satisfaction of the Board of Public Works.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all I needed.
And to the plan that was adopted.
Correct.
By the board.
Yes. Thank you.
Number 7, I'm going to let the Administrator Controller handle the next 4 items.
Good morning, Commissioners. You have in front of you 4 requests for ARPA funding projects. The first one is the elevator modernization project. And I just want to digress a minute and talk about our buildings a little bit. Here at the Tower Building, we have 4 elevators. 2 are passenger elevators. They've been updated, modernized. Our freight elevators, one of which is back here, and then we have one next to the passenger elevators, are circa 1929 elevators, all the original equipment. Currently, neither of them are working, so what we have to do is use the passenger elevator as a freight elevator. The parts are supposed to be in to fix it, but again, it's a 93-year-old elevator. With supply chain issues, it's an issue. So this is why we're coming forward with this request. The same thing with the Human Services Building. That elevator is original to the building. It's used multiple times daily to transport food from the coolers and freezers in the first floor level up to the kitchen. When it goes down, we have to use the other, this building only has 2 elevators. We have to use the passenger elevator to transport the food for the seniors and Meals on Wheels. It's another one of those elevators, the parts are obsolete. The last major failure we had with it, we had to have the part custom manufactured in Toledo. How long did it take, Derek? 4 weeks? Yeah, and it cost a lot of money. So these are one of the areas that we wanted to use the ARPA funding for. With the Human Services Building, that one falls under a different category. It's not the lost revenue funding. It's the health and safety portion of it. So with that in mind, I'll gladly answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So with the cost associated, I'm assuming that fixing these elevators, we're going to essentially gut them and put everything back new? Is that what we're doing?
Yes, and when you refer to gutting them, it will be...
Yeah, maybe I should have clarified that a little better.
Oh, no,
So
that's a great question.
Okay.
It gives me a chance to talk about it a little bit. We're going to be replacing the motors. They currently have generator motors. I know how you feel about them, Rod. We're going to be going with ACs just because the issue now of getting parts for these old generators, it's become extremely problematic. City Hall had to, when they had their building remodel, they tried to reuse their generators, and it didn't work. They had to replace them with AC motors. We'll be putting in all new cabling, travel cables, controls. The issue that we ran into with our elevator back here, the control panel inside the elevator car started sparking, and trying to find a control panel for a 93-year-old elevator was not possible. So the parts that we will reuse are called the sling. It's the part that the cab sits on. It doesn't really wear out, it just helps. It just supports the car as it goes up and down.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I had.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the work that Rick and his staff do. And I have no doubt that the information is good and that we need to do the work on these buildings. But I did a quick addition kind of in my head here, and we've got some $2.1 million worth of proposed expense here on these buildings. But I do want to see the report on our planned use of our buildings in the county, not a report to justify the existence of the buildings that we currently use, but to look about how we might use less. And therefore, I regret, Mr. Chair, that I'll be a no on any further ARPA spending until we see that report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Snell.
I would echo Commissioner Pulaski's concerns.
Commissioner Bear?
The total cost for these two elevators plus the contingency that you want to add comes up to what?
I didn't total it, Tony.
Okay, I don't know if I did not understand Commissioner Pulaski properly. I come up with $1,103,000. I believe Commissioner had said $2 million, or was I mistaken?
I added up 470,000 and 715,000 and 318,000 and 650,000. And that's where I got 2.1 million, unless I added incorrectly. And I did it all in my head, so it's entirely possible that I'm wrong. Nevertheless, my earlier comment stands, Commissioner Bear. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Earl.
Projects, is that what you're saying? Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Well, actually, I'd like to address that, Earl. I think that we have an opportunity here to repair these buildings, and really for the tower building itself with the tuck pointing, I don't want us to go through another freeze-thaw cycle and have more chunks come off the side of the building. It's scary when you go outside and you see pieces of limestone on the sidewalk. We've done a considerable investment in repairing the damaged portions of this building. Now it's time to finish the process and get that tuck pointing done. At the courthouse, at Human Services, I have roofs that are leaking. We call in a contractor, we try to have them fixed, the leaks come back. They're truly at the end of life. I look at this from the aspect of, if it was your house and you had a leaking roof and you were going to sell your house, you'd do what it takes to repair that roof, including replacement. So if we're going to dispose of any buildings and want to get top dollar out of them, we need to put an investment into it. So, well, Ray, I'm preaching to the choir here, to get the most out of the building that you can. These are very unique buildings. This is an Albert Kahn building. The courthouse is a Claire Allen building, done by renowned architects. Can we get top dollar out of them in their current conditions? No. If we continue with our capital process, we can certainly maximize our assets and get the most money out of them.
And I don't disagree at all, Rick, with everything you've just said, because, and I do value your opinion and the hard work that you guys do. That's not at issue here. What's at issue is we've asked for, and now I think it's over a year, for something that deals with our building usage here in the county, and have not yet seen it, and the only thing I have to hold is some sort of a lever to get it is my 1 in 9 vote. And that's all I'm looking for, Rick. And if we find that we have a building that could not be sold or closed without doing some work, I understand that too. But to continue forward without the report, without knowing what the plan is for the buildings going forward, is becoming unacceptable to me. And another, I would say, elephant in the room is the potential for the costs of a jail and other things that ARPA monies might be spent upon. So that's another thing that's kind of out there. Please don't take my political posturing as a reflection upon the work that you guys do.
No, and Mike, do you want to talk about where we're at with the white paper?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we have heard you. We are working towards that goal. We engaged with Region 2 to work on that. Doug Terry has been brought on board by Region 2 to move forward with that. He's a retired city manager, so he's pursuing that. He was slightly derailed a little bit with the jail, because we had to pivot and turn towards the jail, because that we realized was going to be up before, there was a deadline, whether we're going to move forward with the jail or not. So we're trying to get that resolved before the August deadline, and then we'll pivot back towards the other buildings. It's not that we haven't been working in parallel, it's just, it's not been the primary focus. So I apologize for the delay, but unfortunately, we are limited in our resources and ability to move forward on that.
Mr. Chair, if I'm in order, I'm not sure if this is a point of clarification or if it's a point of order, but although this is a very healthy and good discussion, I feel like it's outside the scope of the motion at this time.
There's no motion. All this is study session, and all we're going to be doing is moving this forward to committee. And so commissioners in study session have as many opportunities as they like, and as the board has informed me earlier this year, they don't want to take action at study sessions.
Mm-hmm.
They would prefer things move through the committee process. So that's where we're at. So as many commissioners who want to ask as many questions as possible is what we're trying to generate here this morning.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep, I thank you, Darius, very much. Right?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When I first got on this board and we were presented ARPA, I was not aware of the condition of the jails and the dire needs there. And since that's come to light, we've had some discussions about it, we've talked about it. We're going to be asking the voters for $40 or more million. And I think it behooves us to take as much of that ARPA money as we can and weigh that against some of these other projects, and take some of the burden off the taxpayers. I mean, ARPA money is taxpayer dollars. It's not created out of whole cloth, and we have to be good stewards of those dollars, and that's why I agree with Commissioner Pileski, where, you know, maybe our timetable for a report needs to be moved up. I mean, we continue to spend this money, and we get down to the point where there's no money left. Voters aren't going to be happy if they look at some of these projects that are of a secondary nature being funded instead of the jail being funded. Thank you.
Corey?
First set of questions will be for you, Rick, and then my last will be for Mike. Can you hear me? Is it on? Okay. All right. So in regards to the roofing issues, we're currently experiencing these leaks. This isn't a preventative measure. This is something we're experiencing, and it needs to be addressed now. Would I be correct in that assessment?
That is correct, and what we would do when we experience leaks, we'll call a roofing contractor in to repair them. They usually come back when you're chasing leaks, just like in a big store, it's the same thing.
Totally understand it, and it's past its life of patching at this point, in their opinion.
It really is.
Okay. In regards to the elevators, I believe I heard it in your report, they're both down, and we're currently using the public ones.
That is correct.
Putting unnecessary wear and tear on those currently, correct? Okay. So I would consider these pressing needs. My other question, though, is I don't disagree with Earl. I do think we need to have a vision. We need to see the plan. I totally agree with Commissioner Snell. If we can offset some of the financial pain that the community might feel through a millage on the jail by offsetting it with some ARPA money, that should be looked into. My question is to the administrator, how much ARPA money do we have remaining?
Well, first I would say that we haven't received our second allotment yet.
Okay.
So we haven't spent that money. And of the first allotment, which is, just over 15 million, we have not spent all that money. We've obligated a fair share of it for IT projects and stuff, but it's not all been spent, actually.
Let me change my question a bit. How much has this board voted for to obligate so far of the ARPA money? Because I don't have a balance.
Actually, I believe we have obligated all of the first round. I'm pretty darn close to that. I think it was maybe within a couple $100,000 last I had looked at that. Looking for Cecilia, but it's close to that.
So roughly we're at 15 million that we have left at our discretion.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And to be clear, though, you said at our discretion. Though money is very restricted, there is things we can do and things we can't do. It's yet to be determined on what will be the lost revenue share or portion of those 15 million. The lost revenue share, you have discretion to do as you please. The other monies all have to fit into some defined category, as Rick indicated in regard to the health and safety, I believe, of the human services elevator. Given the nature of what it does, that's why it fits in that category.
So given the pressing needs of these, I'm going to be in support of them. But I certainly would like to see some emphasis on getting that report that Commissioner Pileski's asking for as soon as possible. Those would be my comments.
Commissioner Walls?
Rick, I see on these elevators, you're looking for a replacement, a new replacement. Is that what I understand?
They're modernizations.
Okay, so it's going to be refurbished.
We'll reuse what we can and replace what we need to. And part of this is replacing those generator motors with the AC motors. Variable voltage and coupled with variable frequency drives.
So you're gonna change the motors on the cable systems?
And the cables, and it's the same thing that we've did at the courthouse and here at the tower with our passengers.
That's the best way to do it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Commissioner Alexander?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Earl. Also somewhat concerned with, I guess what I would see is spending the money blindly. You've presented 4 needs that are 4 legitimate needs. Looking at the paperwork here, there's no reason we shouldn't approve all 4 of them. However, I'm sure there's 10 more in line that we need to spend on the buildings in the county. Not to mention, the least of which would be the jail, a completely new building. At the end of the day, whether this takes us another year or 2 years to spend the rest of the ARPA money, there will be more needs than we can afford. At the end of the day, something will be left off. Now, the question that is in my mind is the priority of say, the leaking roof at the court building versus the yet unknown thing that you have not yet presented us. Until we actually know all the needs, how are we actually supposed to decide which are the most important?
Well, that's my job. And these are the ones that, in my mind, are the most pressing. When I have elevators that don't work, when I have roofs that don't leak, when I have a building I have to worry about chunks of limestone coming off from, those keep me up at night.
I certainly understand that, and myself as well. I can't imagine the liability we might have if a piece of limestone were to hit somebody, anything like that. Obviously, these are pressing needs. But again, without having the scope of all other needs, and especially for myself as a newer commissioner, it's going to be really hard to make this priority decision without having the benefit of the report that Earl mentions here of what are the scope of all the needs that we might be looking for here.
The commission did approve our total project. Gosh, when did we do that, Mike?
We have the list. The board did approve it. We've seen it, and I can make it available to you.
It listed all the projects.
Commissioner Alexander. And we are bringing forward, and frankly, I've heard Commissioner Pileski and others on this issue more than once. As he said, it's been a while. And we've been very slow and reluctant to bring ARPA things. We've been trying to only bring the stuff that we felt we had to, there's, like I say, we're bringing the worst of the worst, and trying to do the best we can, frankly.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Darius?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question is for administration. Is there a time limit that we have to spend the ARPA dollars by?
There is. Was it December of 24?
By 2024, we have to have the projects committed, and then everything has to be completed by 2026.
2024 and completed, you said completed by 26?
By 26. That's my poor partner, Derek, here is starting to get gray hair. He's been scrambling to get this stuff all put together.
Okay. So with hearing good conversation from both sides of the argument, I'm a fan of trying to create compromise when we can. I think this may be an opportunity where we can do that. So tell me, do we have an idea what the cost would be? Approximate, it doesn't have to be, exact, but what an approximate, or estimated, I should say, cost would be just to get the freight elevators, just to get them running without doing necessarily this project, but to purchase any parts that's needed, and then maybe later on down the road after we've made our assessments and we can take a look at this list, then can we come back and revisit and say now that although it is in working condition now that we can go ahead and replace all these different parts and move forward from there. Would it be cheaper to just duct tape it, if you will, now, or would it cost more than completely fixing it? I guess is my question.
No, I appreciate your approach to this Commissioner. It's an issue with elevators. It's controlled by the state, and everything we do has to be done to state code. With our main freight elevator, if the parts do come in, I can't predict how long we can make it limp along, but again, when you go inside that elevator, it's going back in time to 1929. It's the original type of an elevator where it had an operator that moved the little circle.
Oh, wow.
Going up, going down, just like we used to have here until everything was modernized. That one's a possibility. Our back freight elevator, no.
When you say back freight, you mean the one over here?
The one over here,
Okay.
yes. That one's, it's out of service. I can't bring that one back.
Okay. So you're saying it would cost more to, or you're not necessarily saying that, you're saying that essentially code wouldn't allow us to kind of duct tape it, so to speak, right now?
Right,
Okay.
and with elevators, we can't even, I don't even want to use that word, but it's an issue where the state inspector is so stringent on his interpretation of the rules that you have to do it the right way.
I understand. Okay. Yeah, like I said, I just was thinking maybe that might be an opportunity to, for compromise, but if code doesn't allow us, I certainly understand. And then my last question on this, I see that we're looking at Great Lakes Elevator of Williamston. Is there anyone, Jackson locally, that we can use? I'm not sure of anyone, but I was curious if there was.
This stuff's really specialized. We put everything out to public bid, and out of all the companies, Great Lakes was the only one who would bid on the tower building.
Right. I guess what I'm saying is, do we have people in town or within Jackson County that could do it? Even if, if they didn't take the bid, that's fine, but.
No.
Okay.
It's that specialized of a process.
Wow. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing further.
Commissioner Snell.
Thank you. I have a question on the HSB freight elevator. Is it used for anything other than going to a food storage facility?
It is. We also use it for our Office of Emergency Measurement when they receive shipments in of PPE. That elevator is used for that as well. It's also used as our main freight elevator for the entire building.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? Thank you for the presentation, and we'll see you again next week.
Excuse me, Chair.
Beginning.
Oh, we are? 'Cause
Unless you guys...
Was that the conclusion for all four?
No, it wasn't. My apologies, Commissioner.
I thought I was getting off easy. So I get for thinking. The next one's the roofing improvements at the courthouse. With this one, again, it was competitively bid. We're recommending the Tremco system. The reason I use Tremco to design our systems, they design the system, they warranty the system, and we have a local contractor that's also certified, so they have a chance to bid. I think it's a great way to do this. It's one of those situations where we've had the roof analyzed, and again, it's one of those rubber roofs that's at the end of its life. We've had a section of it become wind lifted that needs to be cut out and replaced before they proceed with their system. This is a polyurethane system that's done in two courses, and it works for both rubber roofs. It works for build-up asphalt roofs. We first used this at the Lifeways building, and it works great because you don't have to peel off the existing roof. You go through and do a thermal imaging and find the wet spots, remove those, replace them, and then move forward with the 2 courses of polyurethane. It worked great for us at Lifeways, and that's why I'm proposing the same type of system for both the courthouse and the Human Services Building.
Commissioners, any questions in regards to this project?
Mr. Chair, just one.
All right, we'll do Commissioner Bear and then Commissioner Williams.
Thank you. Thank you for the information you shared with me yesterday. That answered a great many of my questions. When you replace the wet insulation that the thermal imaging shows you, what is the structural deck below the wet insulation?
Well, at the courthouse, it's a wood deck.
Okay, if we remove the wet insulation, we find the wood deck is rotted. Is there any contingency in here, anything for replacing deck?
Yeah, that's why I put that 10% in there for $31,800. Of course, with the way building materials keep going up, maybe that'll buy me a 2x4.
Okay, that makes total sense, thank you. You sent me some photographs of the parapet wall at the courthouse. Thank you for doing that. That was helpful. Can you, before this arrives at committee for discussion, is there a bid item that was just strictly the masonry repair? Because a lot of the bricks the joints are failing and water's getting in. And the addendum that you had sent me to review, that masonry is being repaired. If you can identify the cost of repairing the masonry on the parapet and compare that to extending the flashing up the wall right to the bottom of the coping. Is it possible that that material can be just run up the wall farther, which costs more, raking out the joints and fixing them, or putting the flashing over it?
Derek, I'll let you take that one. You haven't spoke yet.
We actually agree with you, Tony. We were discussing that yesterday, and I have an RFI into the contractor to ask if that was part of the scope, actually, if he determined just to go up that other 1.5 feet, because it makes sense. I'm thinking he might have, because it doesn't. So I believe the bulk of all the restoration when it comes to masonry work on that building is the cap, and it's all the joints in between there with the sealant gone bad, and that is what gets you infiltrated into the wall, as you know, easiest. So I'm going to figure that out for you if it goes up, and if not, we're going to see if there's contingencies to do so, because it makes sense. So we don't have to do further repairs down the road.
Right. And I'd asked a question yesterday, you probably have, I'd be surprised if you had time to look at it. It appears in some of those parapet wall photos that there may have been a copper flashing put over the top of the whole parapet wall before the limestone copings were put on. So before committee, if you can look at that and determine, was there a full copper flashing under the coping, under limestone coping units, or is it not there? So.
Per the photos, as you saw, that's definitely on the one side. I went back over there and looked at the exterior to verify, and nothing's hanging out the back side of it. So if anything, maybe it was laid in partially, just to filter water on the other side of it. But I can always check it out.
Thank you.
Commissioners? Darius?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 quick questions. When was the last time this roof was replaced?
It was done in 2002.
2002, okay. And then lastly, again, I'm a big local guy. I like to shop locally. And so I apologize for my redundancy in the question, but I ask it every time something comes up before us. Nobody in Jackson County can do the job. I'm sure we sent it out to everyone.
No, actually, under current situation, under C, it shows who we received bids from, and McDonald Roofing is a local contractor.
Missed that.
It's one of the reasons why I use Tremco. I come from a small business background myself. I would love to keep all our money here in town. It's just, at the end of the day, they needed to sharpen their pencil just like any other contractor to get the job.
Yeah, I missed that. I must have overlooked it, so. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing further.
Any other comments from commissioners on this one? Rick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next one is the tower building masonry repairs and tuck pointing. Boy, I kind of get nightmares going through the current situation on this, but we did have, in 2021, last year, Ram Construction come in and do the necessary repairs to deem our building safe for the winter, and it also provided a thorough hands-on inspection by our engineering consultants that were able to go through and develop a complete scope of work for the entire building to keep this issue from happening again. The final inspection report and bidding documents were developed and used for bid solicitation on our county website. And Ram Construction did have the low bid, and that's who I'm recommending we approve to do the work.
Questions to this item? Commissioner Bear?
This is one project that I personally think is critical. The previous project that repaired some of the limestone and attached it better identified where water would still get in, because that was not part of the previous project. Water gets in, freeze thaw, you got the high likelihood of more 700-pound chunks of limestone falling off that building. So to me, this one is critical, needs to be done soon. So I'd like to ask our administrator, the previous ARPA funding, you said it's all been allocated other than 200,000?
I'd have to ask Cecilia for specifics, but I believe we have. I believe we have allocated that through IT. I think there's a couple million still in IT that she's not proceeded with, but I believe it's all been approved.
So we do have money that we can pay for this project to be done immediately.
Yeah, these were all part of the original, were they not? First allocation. So, in fact, on the face of it, what I just said can't be correct because we haven't allocated this money yet. We proposed it, but the board hadn't approved it.
Correct.
So clearly my number's not right.
Thank you.
No, we had to develop the scope of work.
A little history on the ARPA money. I spent some time here reviewing minutes. We go all the way back to late summer of '21 when we became aware of this money. Now, what we did at that time is we created a master plan, and that master plan far exceeded what our ARPA value was for projects. And what we were going to do is we were going to bring them forward on needs necessitated, and then we decided that we wanted to have a full review of our buildings and programming. If the Board of Commissioners realize that these projects are worthy and need to be done, but do not want to spend ARPA money, the Board of Commissioners can direct the Administrator Controller to spend this money out of the reserve. And we don't have to touch the ARPA money. We can leave the ARPA money unblemished, if you would, until such time as a feasibility study is done. And as we go forward, I would hope that commissioners who are concerned about this would consider these as possible proposals, because I really don't want a piece of limestone coming off and hitting a car out here or anything like that. But while not spending the ARPA money can be, as we've heard, politically motivated, we want to go forward with that. These are things that we can do, and we can do it in that direction. So we need to keep all of our options in mind. Don't think that this is the only 5-gallon pail that we're going to be able to drain the top off of a little bit to get these urgent projects done. I tried to convince Rick to walk around the building at medical care facility and not fix the elevator. He was a little difficult with me that the carts would be a much longer time period and be more costly to do that. So I want to share that my same concern with my fellow commissioners, that we be frugal and responsible with these dollars and look at everything possible. But if we want to be able to manage these buildings going forward, I think that part of it is taking responsibility tactically for some things that need to be fixed. Go ahead.
On that note, there's a couple things I should probably mention. First, you're correct, very correct. These are projects that we believe are very necessary to do, and it's not a matter of if we do them, it's just when we do them and how we will pay for them. Sooner or later, we will have to replace the roof, and we will have to tuck point, and you all recognize that. And I do understand the significance of the request. You want to spend money wisely. We very much appreciate that. We all do. One other thing I would just caution just slightly here, because I don't know the number yet. Cecilia's still working on the revenue loss, because the way the ARPA was set up, the revenue loss established from 2019, I believe it was, with the formula, is what we can use to spend on pretty much any way the board deems fit. But if that revenue loss is only $1 million, it's only $1 million. That means all the other monies have to be spent in the specific categories required by the act, the law. So I'm just a wee bit hesitant to go to general fund immediately without knowing that number. I asked Cecilia, we talked about last week. We talked a little bit about yesterday, actually, and she thinks it's imminent. Within the next 2 weeks, she thinks she should have the number from the state and have it calculated, but I don't have the number just yet. So, that's why I'm a little reluctant there to say. And any money you spend, obviously, I think the jail is a necessary situation. We're going to have to deal with that. For that, it's not like we won't spend this money eventually, regardless. It'll just come from a different source. It's still taxpayer money, though.
Facilities, Human Service.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last but not least, it's the Human Services Building roof rehabilitation. Same issue that we're running into at the courthouse. It's just this one has what's called a build-up modified roof. It's fiberglass matting, build up with hot asphalt and then ballast stone on the top of it. This one will use a different technique where they'll go through, remove all of the wet and damaged sections, replace it with new insulation, new membrane, and then more roof ballast on top of it. And then after they've gone through and wet vacuumed all of the stone, they'll lay those same 2 courses of polyurethane down. Same thing that we've proposing to do at the courthouse, same thing that we have done at Lifeways. Same system. Again, this is one where we've just chased the leaks for quite a while, and it's just time to finish this one off. This building's set up in a T fashion. The stem of the T we have replaced the roofing on over the years. The cross part was the last to be done, and that's what we're proposing with this. This is sections A and B, which should have been part of your packet.
Questions? Seeing none? Thank you.
Thank you,
See
Mr.
you in
Chair.
committee.
Thank you, Commissioners.
.911 presentation, EMD staffing.
Again, thank you, County Administrator, Deputy County Administrator, County Commissioners, for allowing us to present this once again. First and foremost, I just want to explain that the EMD and the staffing, that has been two separate things, two separate items. It's my understanding that the way I presented before is just one thing, but it's actually been two separate things for many, many years. To start out with EMD, we visited HVA, which is Huron Valley Ambulance, a couple of weeks ago, and they got to hear that there has been communication issues for several years. We've addressed them back and forth for many, many years as well. And now we're here trying to fix a very serious problem with the centers not having the information correctly. So, Tim, you got anything?
No, just again, thank you for giving us this opportunity to hopefully clarify. Sometimes when we, especially in the fire service, we use a lot of acronyms. We live this every day, and so, you know, any confusion or any questions you have, please reach out to us, because sometimes I think we just assume everybody knows or understands. And you know, it's a little different life when you live and breathe by a radio. That's your only form of communications a lot of times when we're out on these calls.
Can't click it. There you go, thanks. Thank you. Again, what is EMD? EMD, it's guide cards, it's software protocols. Gives the pre-arrival instructions for the caller, from dispatch to the caller, just providing them the immediate life savings instructions that they need to help that loved one or a stranger. Again, this is all integrated with our current CAD system. This is accredited by the Medical Association of the U.S. that helps both the call taker and the citizen alike.
You hear the term first responder a lot. The first responder to a true emergency is the person who called. They're the first responder, and a lot of times, if our dispatchers can give them that life-saving information, that's what we're really looking to do with EMD, is to be able to get that information and those instructions where that loved one can start helping immediately.
That's not good. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Next is the different resources. I kind of put this up a little differently than I did last time. Last time it was just little definitions of everything that this could provide Jackson County and dispatch as a whole. The greater use of resources. Want to talk on that?
Sure. As most of you are aware, the townships, there's 15 fire departments that handle handle the emergency medical services and fire services in Jackson County presently. we're under severe budget crunches, just like everybody else. And more importantly, with the aging of the baby boomers, which I'm at the tail end of that at 64, the requirement for services is only increasing. And you'll see that in some later slides. And what the townships and the locals are trying to do, 80% of Jackson County is covered by volunteer fire in land mass. Not talking population and land mass. Those smaller townships are struggling to find a way of how to handle these increased run call volumes. EMD would help us allocate the right resource. If it's just an ambulance, then just send an ambulance. But sometimes, because of HVA, JCA's ambulance, our local ambulance company, we don't want to send that ambulance, just like we don't want to send a fire truck to a non-emergency. We also don't want to send one of our ambulances to a lift assist necessarily, because again, that is tying up a resource. So you'll see through the slide presentation that we're really looking at trying to make sure that the resources that we have right now, that we're putting them where they're needed the most, and looking for any kind of cost savings. And besides just monetary savings is paid on call departments, which I represent one. Those are people that have quote unquote a regular job. They're working 8 to 10 hours a day, and then in their off time, they're performing emergency first responders duties. And so running them on too many calls, we're seeing burnout. It's hard to attract people. And we're hoping that through EMD and better dispatching, we can screen and make sure that, again, appropriate resources, the appropriate response.
Yep, and then gathering all the information, something we talked about at HVA as well. I kind of put this together with the interface. This allows the dispatcher the ability to gather the needed answers and pass that information directly to both the fire departments and hopefully HVA if we were able to build an interface. And I'll get a little ahead here on the PowerPoint. But when we don't gather that information and we pass it on, transfer that call, that creates another thing, which is confusion and the customer service that we often get complaints on. And that there, we have to try to ease the distraction or the citizen getting upset with both us when we transfer the call, because this is their worst day, and then HVA re-asking all the same questions we just got done. That will take anywhere from 90 to 120 more seconds. Just that point there from the transferring, asking the same questions. And that's what we're trying to stop. And then in return, we wait for a call back from HVA to give us the updated information. So we might get it as a trouble breathing. They might get it as a heart attack. That changes the protocol for the rescue responding. It doesn't change the protocol for the ambulance, but it definitely does for our rescues. And that's what we're trying to fix here. The interface, this is the starting point, and even HVA said this is where it all starts, is the interface. You're creating a better communication between the centers. Allows both of us to send the information back and forth between CADs after we get the information. But if we don't do EMD, we will still have to transfer that call for them to do the EMD. So there will still be that confusion from the citizens. Cost of savings to townships and to possible citizens. If it's a lift assist and the ambulance goes to it, it costs citizens $159. Insurance doesn't pay for it. That's the savings to citizens. And the savings to townships?
Savings to townships, a lot of us rely on that word millage. So one of the selling points when I talk to the citizens about the millage is this is a way, again, for the fire department, not that we like to go out on lift assists, but it is a way to give back to the citizens. It is a way for us to go out there at no cost to them. And this is a result of the effort, which I wholly support, of trying to keep the elderly out of skilled nursing homes. We're trying to keep them home longer. It's proven they do better, but sometimes grandma just can't help grandpa up off the floor, and there's nobody else to call. So do we tie up a advanced life care ambulance, or do we send the local fire department? And, through better screening, I think this is one of the areas that we can highlight to the citizens on what we're able to do. And we would be responding in a rescue out of the fire station, normal traffic. That's not an emergency. Through EMD, we would be able to better screen those calls because, again, I think I've used this story a few times, is if you ask my mom to call 911, she would say, I'm having a spell, and if somebody could come, that'd be great. The public doesn't always give us accurate information on what their true need is or what the true emergency is. So EMD is a way for us at our center here in Jackson to be able to screen those calls and determine, is this a true emergency and what level of emergency? And then more importantly, each community or each one of those 15 fire departments can set their response protocol. If Grass Lake says this is the way that we're going to respond to this call, could be slightly different than the way Spring Arbor or Summit would respond to that call. So it allows those communities to kind of choose the level of service they're going to provide.
And that's something that's built into the system. That's why it takes approximately 24 months to build out. Moving right along. No, wrong way. Let me move this down so we can see it. How we currently do EMD. I know a few of you guys stopped down. We kind of talked about it. Currently, all medical calls are transferred to HVA, Huron Valley Ambulance in Ann Arbor. Then the citizen then has to repeat the emergency information, like I've discussed, to HVA before starting the actual EMD process. So they're still asking, what's the address? What's going on? They're getting a caller's name and a phone number. In case they lose connection, they can call them back. Repeat the same information, transfer to another PSAP. This adds time to every call. Like I said, 90 seconds to 120 seconds extra. And then the critical information is not always made available to the first responders or to us to pass out to the first responders. And I just want to kind of show you the graph of the cardiac arrest calls. For 2021, it was 332. 2019, 189, and 2020, 172. Process for Jackson County: incoming call to 911, the emergency medical, get a location and basic information. Then we transfer it. That's exactly how we do it. And then we dispatch our rescue units based on the information we have. Hopefully we get updates and new information for HVA, but that hasn't happened and it continues to be a problem. And we rely on the HVA for the updates. The process for misroutes. So this is misroutes from other counties. You live on the border, the call, say you live in Hanover, the call goes to Hillsdale County. They EMD the call and they cannot transfer it to us. They EMD it because of their insurance reasons. We rely on them to call us and call JCA to get that ambulance en route. Causes problems, but per their licensing, they can't transfer it to us because we're a non-EMD PSAP.
The person has to start transfer it to Huron Valley.
So if, let's say Hillsdale's doing the call, they will EMD the whole thing, they will take the call, take the information, they will then call HVA directly, say, hey, this is the code, say C20, this is the address, this is the information. They get it, then they will call and let us know, hey, we got possible heart attack at this address. So they're making 2 calls for one separate thing. But they will either EMD it themselves or. So the different comparisons, pros and cons for EMD. Customer service, we ease the confusion, stop all the complaints. We streamline the service and information. We're asking all the questions, we're passing all the information to both first responders and the ambulance. Like again, we put the caller at ease. Remember, this is their worst day. Horrific. Life-threatening. They don't want to have to talk to too many people too many times saying the same stuff. Again, lower the ISO ratings for the townships or that fire department. Hopefully be able to give fire board a dedicated dispatcher. There's a total of 71 PSAPs right now that currently do EMD in the state of Michigan. That's some of the pros. The cons, training every 2 years. It's added on to the training we already have every 2 years, which is 24 hours mandated by the state. That we have to complete every 2 years, and then 80 hours for the first 2 years of becoming a dispatcher. The cost of more staff. I mean, the average calls is 3 minutes for EMD, so it's going to add a little more time to the calls. Currently, the average call for us right now is 67 seconds, just over a minute. Staff shortages currently must be willing to bring that up to correct that, and then add the more staff to correct the EMD or to handle EMD correctly. Complaints. These are the constant complaints I hear. I know fire chiefs hear them as well. Why does the dispatcher have to ask so many questions? That's a common complaint. Why does it take so long to get an ambulance to the medical emergencies they were seeking help for? Why do we have to explain something 2 times along with the reason for the wait to be connected to the ambulance center? Like again, they are expressing the fear, the anxiety, the frustration their loved one is experiencing, witnessing during this extreme medical emergency. This type of frustration shouldn't happen at all, and it's been happening for many years.
I think I'd also like to say that the EMD does another thing. It's standardized. The start of every call will be exactly the same. The question will be the same, and then the answer to that question leads them to the next question. And so it's going to help the dispatcher. If the dispatcher forgets something or forgets to ask a critical question, it can change the whole response protocol. This is very methodical, it's very system-based. This isn't something that myself and Jason came up with. This is a nationally recognized dispatching system that would hopefully standardize this.
And this is becoming the actually best practice for all call centers.
So we can't without creating the...
Oh, we can. I mean, I think we're doing the best practices that we can afford to do right now. I think our dispatch center is a great center, and I think our dispatchers do a wonderful job. I think to take it to the next level in the number of calls that we're going to have to do, that's what EMD is going to do, and take hopefully some of the stress off the back of the dispatchers, to be quite honest, too, besides helping the first responders. I think it will greatly reduce the stress level on the dispatchers.
And these EMD, EFD, which is emergency fire, and EPD, emergency police, these protocols are actually the best practice that NENA and APCO are sending down to us right now. These were actually asked for the first time on our state audit that we have every year. Kind of saying that start looking at this stuff because this is coming. And sooner or later it could be an actual mandate from the state or nationally that we have to go with these type of protocols. A lot of the centers we use the 7 Ws. It's questions off of questions. And do they forget to ask certain questions? Yes, they do. Does it happen? Yes. Unfortunately, it happens in every part of this country. That's why we've had these accidents in Florida, Ohio, California, because they forgot to ask a question or forgot to pass the information. So I just want to kind of give you a little more information on that stuff. And then the other issue was staffing. Our fire board, I've talked about this before, our fire position consists of 3 different duties. They're the fire dispatcher, they are secondary phones, and they are also our primary lean. They do 3 jobs. With that, we have protocol that lean gets put on the side when we get too busy. Well, in the sense, if everybody's busy in there and lean gets put on the side, that officer that's calling in wanting that information, whether it's a subject, a license plate, or a hit confirmation comes through or something like that, it's put on the side until we can get to it. Unfortunately, we put those on the side for 20, 30 minutes before because of fires or pursuits or something like that that's going on. And I've had police chiefs voice their concerns with me. Had the sheriff, undersheriff at one time, and also Columbia Township, Blackman Township. We just can't do it if we don't have the staff to do it. This is overwhelming for that dispatcher. Lean, it's a very busy talk group. They enter PPOs, they modify PPOs, lean messages, hit requests, validations. Validations is done monthly. Everything we enter, we have to check every month to make sure we did it correctly. If we don't get bothered, it could take us 20 minutes to do 1 PPO. If we are getting multiple calls, things like that, it could take up to an hour to finish 1 PPO. Technically, we get about 10 to 15 PPOs a day sometimes. Thursdays and Fridays, for some reason, are very busy. And they come down all the time. And sometimes those PPOs will actually go on until Saturday and Sunday to enter them, because we still have a time limit to enter them. But is that safe? Because that's somebody's requesting us to put something in there. One of the needs we've talked about for many years with the old administration at the Sheriff's Department to now is to separate the dispatching. Giving fire their own dispatcher, put the secondary phones and lean on a separate position. And currently we can't do that, but it has been needed. Mike, you got anything from the law enforcement standpoint about lean?
Yeah, a lot of people will say, well, you have a computer in your car, why don't you just run the plate or do your check from there? A lot of times when you get to a call, you're away from your vehicle. You might be at a domestic situation or something where you can't leave the scene to go back to your patrol car and leave people there, or, you know, it's a volatile situation. So a lot of times you are asking dispatch to run somebody, see if they have warrants or they a wanted felon. There's a lot of reasons that position is important. And I mean, this is something that has been needed for a long time, both, in my opinion, EMD and additional staffing. The transferring of calls to Ann Arbor, imagine if we tried to do that with law enforcement. Someone's breaking into your house, you call, someone's breaking into my house, okay, let me transfer you to Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department. We'll send a police car, but if something changes, tell them, and then they'll call us back and update us. It's just not practical anymore. And when I started in this business 29 years ago, Jackson County did EMD. This is not something where, you know, we want to expand where we should be. This is something we did in the past. The situation we're in now was a cost-saving measure at the time. But what's important, I think, is that we're asking to do or to provide the same service to the residents of Jackson County that Hillsdale County and Lenawee County are providing to their residents. And I think our county provides better service than those in almost all areas, but this is one area where we're behind. And I think if you allow the voters to vote on an increase, then they've spoken. Nobody here is being asked to raise people's taxes. You're being asked to put it to the people and let them say their piece. So, I think it's, all of these things are important, and there are other needs with the jail and so forth, but, a lot, there are educated voters out there, and let them tell you as commissioners what's important to them and what they're willing to spend money on.
Thank you. Yep, yes, sir.
Thank you. Jason, I read the weekly reports that we get from Sheriff Schutte, and frequently there's a traffic stop. They find out there's 2 outstanding warrants, and so they arrest the person. Is this them knowing that there was outstanding warrants? Is that a result of the officer in the car requesting and receiving a lien check on that person or that car?
Yes. That's running a plate and then running the persons inside the car.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So other county staffing, I kind of wanted to throw this out there. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get all the information on the other county staffing, population, and calls, 911 volumes and comparisons. So I got Hillsdale, 9 dispatchers, 3 supervisors, 1 deputy director, 1 director, population's 45,000. They take in a total 67,000 calls a year. And then they got Calhoun. They have 27 dispatchers, 2 call takers, 5 supervisors, population 134,000. And this is one of the counties that we did go visit, and our group actually went and talked to them about EMD as well. Lenawee County, 16 dispatchers, 4 supervisors, a population of 99,000, of course, the call volume. And then Jackson County, population of 58,000, and the call volume. Unfortunately, I was not able to get the 2021 call volume for the other 3 counties. This was the first year that we had to do our paperwork within it's called MySnap. Unfortunately for all of us, there was a lot of issues submitting the documents and the data into it, and we all had some type of grammatical error on their end, and we have to go back and try to fix all the issues that we've had. So they wanted to fix it with the state first before they sent it to me. Luckily, I had mine from this year and last year. Fire department, this is one I showed you guys in the last quarter review. The increase from last year to this year on the different on the call volume for each fire department. The increases, I think there's only one that had they're all increases. Just percentage, why? Staffing, what we kind of currently have is staffing, I kind of showed you back there. Currently staffing 24 of those, current staff is 24. Of those, 4 are supervisors. Try to make it 5 working per shifts, including 1 supervisor. Problem is, time off, trainings, all this stuff kind of plays an effect. Medical issues that we have, last year, past couple of years been COVID. So that part has really hurt us quite a bit. We're a 24/7 operation. We can't go down past a certain number of people. When we do, it could be very dangerous on us. So we have a lot of overtime. Every center has overtime. That's just the nature of the business. We don't have someone else to cover us if we go down to 3. Fire departments, stuff like that, they will have other departments cover them. We don't. We're the only ones in Jackson. We did the Kimball study back in 2015. I know we've talked about it a few different times. It stated that we were significantly understaffed. We addressed the supervision problems that we had. Back then, the sergeant from the sheriff's department supervised after hours, or on weekends when I wasn't there. There was a lot of issues back then. Now we have a direct approach. They estimated we needed 38. To me, that's extremely high as well. Increase in percentage of calls every year. The percentage of calls goes up, and it has gone up every year. Compared to other centers, we are significantly understaffed currently. It's the study that was done, and I've said a few different times, kind of a few of the things that we've done to our center since 2013, and we've done the surcharge increase in 2009, I think it was 16 as well. We built a new center. The old one was unrepairable. We had water coming in the basement. Finally, administration allowed us to research and build a new one at Lansing Ave. We updated our phone equipment. We moved to a new phone provider, PFN. Had its up and downs with everything new. Upgraded the phone system again in 2019. Update the radios. We got texting into dispatch. Currently take about 372 texts. Luckily, it's a lot less than some other counties that take about 1,300. We upgraded our service reports, so we've updated our stuff to keep our technology updated, but we still haven't fixed our current staffing issues. The recommendations: ask the voters for a $1.50 increase to the surcharge to make it $3. And trust me, for me, it's a hard one too, because I pay it too, unfortunately. We all got to pay something. If approved, the county board would make a resolution each year by June 1st to lower or raise any surcharge increase by resolution. So if we made it $3, essentially, I have to have my budget done before June 1st, but if I can only take in $245, then we move it down to $245 a year instead of keeping it at $3. That's just something that could be done. Any vote would need to be completed by May 15th of 2023 to take effect of July 1st. So this would have to be on the November ballot, so it could go before May 15th, which is when I hand my paperwork into the state. Again, I had Cecilia update these numbers, projected cost from now to 2032. Looks like some of it's, I don't know if it's just this screen or not, but operating budget, the bond fee for the radio, pension bond, indirect costs that we pay. Oh, I did that. The total, possible new hires, and the total amount for each year. So this is the anticipated future costs. Projected millions that the revenue would produce if it went to $3, or different categories at the bottom. $2.50 would bring in $4.1 million, where $3 would bring in $4.8 million. Estimate. Funding, what we try to use the funding for. New dispatchers. A QA supervisor, because EMD, if we did approve EMD, we would need a QA supervisor to critique every EMD call, at least 2% of all the calls. That's a mandate that we have to do. Try to have somebody else in charge, deputy director, in case I'm not there, be my second-hand person. So updates to the PSAP, and possibly create a small fund. And this, I'm just throwing this out there. Create a small fund for radio replacement, MDC, something like that.
I thought you told us that we weren't allowed to do that because we have to adjust the budget according to whatever surplus is on hand. And then we only can bank the money after we've bonded for new radios.
So, when I put that in there, the FCC still hasn't came back with their mandate yet about the radios outside. But one of the things is, if we have a project, and we have a fund, and that fund is for that project, we can put money in there for that, as long as we use it for that project, because that will go to the state. Is that what you're, okay. Current funding, dispatch is funded by $1.50, which was increased back in 2016. This year, the general fund will supplement 911 budget about $420,000. Different types of fundings that the state of Michigan has. So there is a way, there's surcharges, millages,
Mr. Chair.
general monies.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's great that we
The $1.50?
because whatever.
Okay.
So that all your funding is.
Yes. And the general fund is about $420,000 as of 2021. The general fund actually puts back into dispatch now. EMD is supported by the advisory board. The medical control of, oh, sorry. Yes. Once you set it at the, if you set it, you can move it down, not up. Threshold.
My next question, so what is the limit? You authorize up to $3 and down to $1.50?
Once the voters would authorize the $3, we could then, by vote of board, move it down to what is needed to fund the dispatch center, yes.
But no more than 3, so there's a limit.
Correct. Yep.
The other question I had, just to back a little bit, you said that the EMD at the time, right now we spend an average of 67 seconds per call, and the system would be 3 minutes. Are we just collecting that much new information? And we weren't collecting before? I mean, I understand before it was, some was collected here, and then the transfer, some collected there, and then the transfer. So I would have thought that now we would be spending less time on calls, more efficient.
Well,
Why is the time going up?
At our dispatch center, we want to account for it. That's what it's going to be. If you look at our 67 seconds and then what's happening over at HVA on that same call, it's over that 3 minutes.
We don't work, the 67 seconds is our portion, that's not the total length of call.
Correct.
What
So
would that total length of call be right now, and what are we gaining in efficiency of the overall system?
it's the efficiency to me that I can say is the amount of time that it takes right now, which is the dispatch and talking to HVA, they put it at between 90 and 120 seconds of repeat information. So we asked 67 seconds worth of questions. Their first 67 seconds presumably are the same questions they already answered. So you're picking up that efficiency, and hopefully also our dispatcher is developing a relationship with that person to help them start the process of providing emergency medical care, by helping them, the layperson, getting things started. But to put a number on that to say we're going to save 100 lives, I'm reluctant to say that because I don't know how I could back that up.
Right,
And
staying called on, I mean, right now there's 5 minutes on the phone, 6 minutes on the phone, we're going to have
increase?
That, right now, our 67 seconds and then their 3 minutes over there come out to 4 minutes and look, theoretically, we're saying that the average EMD call should only be 3 minutes. Right now, we're over that 3 minutes between the two centers. By bringing that efficiency, and we're going to lower that number. And just as importantly is we're going to make sure, once we let go of that call at 67 seconds, the rest of that, or the additional 2 minutes and 30-some seconds are basically dead to us. We don't know what new information has come out. Quick little, in Summit Township in 2021, we had a call for trouble breathing. Come into a person's home. He was out in his truck. The family realized he was slumped over in the seat. They called, said he was having trouble breathing when they went out there. We arrived, Summit Township arrived on scene to a gunshot wound. The dispatch center over in Ann Arbor knew that it was a gunshot. My guys had no idea that they were walking into a gunshot scene. So safety, how did something so critical as that information during a follow-up call, how did that not make it back here? That's unacceptable. It's just unacceptable and that's just one of the calls. And we have that happen quite often.
You were just saying that the length of times it gets transferred to Huron Valley Ambulance, and there's a lag time there. I feel like I'm missing something. How would increasing the phone surcharge from $1.50 to $3 decrease that or change that communication? I thought when we were at Huron Valley Ambulance, he was talking about a data transfer of about $100,000 cost.
A piece.
Pardon me?
A piece, right?
A piece,
Yep.
okay, it's $100,000 to us, Huron Valley Ambulance, who pay their own $100,000. And so then the questions that are answered in Jackson are entered in, somehow the call gets transferred, but all of that information already asked, answers received is typed in. So next person at Huron Valley Ambulance does not need to ask those questions again. Do we need the $100,000 data interface, or do we need doubling the phone surcharge?
So the interface was the starting point to all this. It's the hub where everything kind of works off of. So the interface allows us to communicate back and forth without having to pick up a phone call. That was the interface, back and forth. The problem is if we currently still didn't do EMD, yeah, they have the information, the address, location, stuff like that, but we have to transfer that call to them. Guess what's the first question they gotta ask? They still gotta ask, what's the address? And hopefully the person they're talking to is on their call taking side so they can see that. But they still gotta ask questions still. Make sure it's the correct person. Address and phone number is gonna be the two big things. So they're still gonna have to ask questions.
Okay, so then the complaints that we've received that people calling in, they don't like that they have to get transferred to somebody else and be asked the same questions again.
Right.
Well, that's not changing. They're still going to be asked the same questions a second time?
Correct. To a certain point, how's that?
Yep.
Yes, to a certain point.
And that's why I don't want to transfer calls. Let me be honest, as a fire chief, I don't want to transfer the call over. I want to handle that call in Jackson County with a Jackson County dispatcher staying with that person the entire time. And we'll just electronically send the information to the ambulance company service. That's what the other, like Hillsdale does. That Hillsdale doesn't transfer the call. They hold on to it. They take care of all the questioning, one person during the whole conversation, and they just transfer the information over to the ambulance company.
So if our local Jackson employee stays on the phone, stays in contact, we don't transfer the call, it's put into a system where the people that in Washtenaw County can see the information. They dispatch the ambulance?
Yes. We don't dispatch ambulances right now. We dispatch the rescue, but we don't dispatch ambulances.
And we will, with your proposal, we will dispatch them?
We will send them the information that an ambulance is
Send
needed
them,
at that
who's
address.
them?
The ambulance, the HVA, they will get the information directly to their, what we call MDCs. That's how Kevin kind of worded it. They will go to their LOGIS, which is their MDC in their unit, so they would have the information directly.
So they don't need to ask the same questions again?
If the interface and we did EMD, yes, that's correct.
If we get the interface and have our own emergency medical dispatch, then Huron Valley Ambulance won't be dispatching the ambulance. We will be doing that.
Well, I can't say 1% yes to all that. I mean, they still gonna have to dispatch, yes, they're still gonna have to dispatch.
But our resident won't have to talk to Huron at all, like they currently do.
We would, that's where the interface comes in. They would get that interface, they get the address, the phone number, the code, which tells them exactly what they're responding to, whether it's priority 1 or priority 2 or priority 3 call, and then they would still, but that information would be given to both, from what Kevin talked about, was the ambulance itself and to the dispatch center, so both places would have the exact same information.
Okay, and currently Huron Valley Ambulance dispatches the ambulance, but with your plan, Jackson County Central Dispatch would send the ambulance.
We would send the information, the dispatching would still happen from HVA.
Okay, so the citizen calling in with the emergency, they would not be talking to people at HVA?
Correct. That's the part that would stop.
Okay, so HVA, any information they need, they get it from our dispatchers electronically through the interface.
That is correct.
Well, if we are dispatching the ambulance, what do we need them for?
We're not dispatching them though. They're-
Right, and they're going to manage their resources. It's not unusual for us to have an ambulance that comes from outside Jackson County. I've even had Chelsea ambulance, so Jackson would have no way of knowing the closest available ambulance and where it's going to come from. That has to come from their company. Their company knows
Did I misunderstand you? Did you not say that Jackson County Central Dispatch would dispatch the ambulance?
No. I don't think I did.
So it's still going to be dispatched from Huron Valley?
Correct. They would just have all the information so they can make that dispatch. Instead of transferring that phone call, we would do everything in-house. By the interface, we would have that interface so they would have all the information that we collected, so there's no miscommunication, and then they would dispatch.
So then here, HVA does not talk to the person making the 911 call?
Correct.
So there'd be no transfer of call from Jackson County Central Dispatch and transferring the call to Huron Valley Ambulance?
Correct.
But Huron Valley Ambulance still dispatches the ambulance?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think those of us who went over to Huron Valley Ambulance, we learned a lot. And it seemed the most pressing thing that they felt was needed was this interface. That would be the best start.
Correct.
And certainly they explained pretty well on how it works. The question I have is the need for a $3 millage now. It's my experience as a taxpayer, if we overtax, and we can call this a surcharge all we want to, but it's a tax, it gets spent. So you're asking for a 40% increase in staff from 25 to 35. So what I'd rather, go 50% more, whatever needs to be there, but I am not comfortable just telling people you're going to pay $3 and hopefully the board after us takes that into consideration and just says, $3, it's only $3. I think that we need to safeguard that a little bit by setting limits. And, government will eat every dollar that you put into its mouth.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm trying to identify all the issues here, and I think I've got them listed. The first one is the communication gaps between our 911 and Huron Valley's center. And and I'm just going to list them first, then maybe I'll come and make a few comments. So the interface is the potential issue or potential fix. The second is the presence of emergency medical dispatchers in Jackson. I guess that's the second issue. The third is fire dispatching. In other words, within our 911 system, should we segregate the lean work to another dispatcher? That's another thing. And the fourth is the 911 short staffing, existing short staffing, according to the presentation. As Commissioner Snell noted, going back to issue 1, the interface seems to me is a good start, because that is what communicates. If you have better communication between us and Ann Arbor, the communication happens. And I think it's important for commissioners to know, and I think I heard this when we took the tour, is that as soon as your 911 dispatcher hears, oh my goodness, he's having a health problem, and my address is wherever it is, Tim and his guys are on the way. I mean, you guys are getting dispatched right away without, even before the call gets forwarded on to HVA. So from at least getting the troops on the way, God bless you guys, you're on the way, even though we don't know exactly what's wrong with him, okay? Am I right so far? Okay.
Yep.
So that's good. I think the interface is a good place to start. With respect to the EMD, I think Tony was queuing up to if we have emergency medical dispatchers in Jackson, then the question becomes how much do they do versus what does HVA do? And frankly, how comfortable would they be with our people not dispatching their ambulance, but providing much more information about the dispatch that affects their business? So I would be, if I was HVA, I'd be a little concerned about that, but that's just one of the things we need to think about. And frankly, what relief of costs to HVA would there be if we were to be doing more of that work? The third thing with respect to fire dispatching, that's a workload sort of an issue, and I guess one of the questions I would have is, with respect to PPO, is why is 911 entering them and not some other clerical process? But that's a question I don't need to answer totally, so it's just a question, okay? And with respect to the short staffing, I know the Kimball study has suggested we need more crew, but I think I heard you say something like you thought maybe the suggested staffing was more than what was actually needed, which kind of degrades the credibility of the Kimball study if you're not convinced that it's actually what's wanted.
Well, for me, for a study to be done, I would say a study has to be done with the best practice of NENA along with that. And even when they supplied that study, they actually told us that to get an actual analysis of the staffing, we would have to submit to another study to get an actual. So that was what they came up with. Yep.
So I too appreciate you guys taking the time to take us out there to Huron Valley so we could understand the process a little bit more. my understanding is very similar to Commissioner Pileski's, that, at least from that director's standpoint, interface was the crucial thing right now, and that could also help alleviate some of the fire calls, because on the way, if there was some new information, you guys would be receiving it as they receive it almost. So you could potentially get called off, or in the case of a gunshot wound, no, and the police obviously would need to be there first. My main concern from your own report is our staffing. If we're not staffing our current 911 dispatch at the levels we feel we need to take on a whole new other department, regardless of what we charge the people. That's going to require even more training.
Correct.
I would rather see us purchase the software, which I think we could find that money, see how that works, if it alleviates some of the problems, and get our current staffing up to where it needs before we take on the chore of adding on in addition to. That's really where I'm at on it. So I appreciate all the work. I appreciate the explanations, the thoroughness. I believe I got a pretty good understanding of how it works, and it's not easy to explain. So thank you for your time on all of it. But that's really where I'm at. I think you definitely need the technology. There's no doubt about it. I'm always apprehensive of growing government, because I concur with Commissioner Snell. Once you X out this amount of money, I've yet to meet a government that says, hey, we only spent this much. Let's send John C. Q. A check in the mail. It just doesn't happen. So.
You can do the first.
Well, hey.
And just understand that the 911 funding, that is audited by the state every year. That money can only go to 911 or what 911 dispatch is for. So it can't be used for other things outside of dispatch.
And I wanted to add one more quick thing. Back in 2015, I was part of the study looking at the radio system and the surcharge increase. We were at 44 cents, and we went from 44 cents up to $1.50. That was a big increase. And at that time, we had a VHF radio system, and we were pretty happy with it. We knew that there were some issues with it. We knew we were going to have to make some upgrades. So we tried to throw the best thing that we could, price-wise, and that's where we came up with that $1.50. Then along come the 800 megahertz system. And when we were looking at, do we put the amount of money into our VHF system, or do we go to 800 megahertz, which everyone around us was going to do, the decision and part of our budgeting, you look at, I think the payment for that bonding is $800,000. If we hadn't moved to 800 megahertz, and that wasn't we put the cart before the horse, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is we set the $1.50 prior to knowing that we were going to go to 800 megahertz and that we were going to have to do that large of an upgrade and have that large of a commitment. Or we would have probably asked for $1.75 or whatever it was, because the committee back then, we didn't want to come back. And the only thing, I share your concern about the $3 from my perspective, and I understand that, we all have to hold people accountable, but the last thing I want to do is go out and sell $1.75 is what it takes today, and then in 2 years from now, you're back to funding out of the general fund, and you say, we have to make some cuts. That's the beauty of the way this works, is if you do, it's set as a limit. It can't go higher than $3, no matter what inflation does. It's inflation-proof. So inflation goes sky high, you can't go above $3. If the costs go up, you can move it down. So that's the only reason the recommendation, when we talked with the supervisors, that was their recommendation too, is the $3, because they have the trust and faith that you guys will be able to adjust it down, but not have to go back to the people and have them say 5 years from now, well, didn't you think about that the last time you came to us? That's the upside of it.
So just to let you know, one county that does have the adjustable amount is Hillsdale. They're currently at $2.75 right now. Their actual, they can go up to $3. So that's one county that utilizes it quite a bit. Move it up and down.
Have they moved it down?
Yes, it was at $3 a couple years ago, and they moved it down to $2.75.
If the operating costs or the needs ever goes up above that $3, you'll just be back asking for another increase.
Well, there's no increase after $3. That's the limit, $3
That's the limit by
by the state.
Thank you.
I would just add, if I may, that while the $3 is the max in the fee, there is counties who have millage.
Yes.
I think the surcharge is good though, because everybody pays that. Not just people that own homes. People that live in apartments and mobile homes pay the same as everybody. If you go the millage route, it's just people that own property.
Yeah. As far as, we paying money out of the general fund for this, I look at that as an essential service of government, and I don't have a problem with us putting money into this system as needed. But to just go $3 all at once, when I don't see where that's needed right now, and like I said, future boards can just say, $3. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you for your time.
I appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Support. Aye.
We did not modify the agenda, sir. I took it under item 9, which is other items. And then I took the liberty, instead of Ray having to read the whole resolution to us, I immediately accepted a friendly motion from Ray to go to the Administrator Controller's office, supported by Vice Chairman Kennedy, and administratively sent it to the Administrator Controller's office, which is where inevitably it would end up with review to show up on Tuesday night, sir. Item 10, public comment. Is there any public comment?
Peter Blumth. You have the advantage over me in terms of the 911. I didn't go on the tour, but it seems to me from what I heard today that the interface is something that would be essential to the operation, and I think that could come out of the general budget. I'd like you to consider that. I wanted to talk about inflation a little. I think it is a worry that every American has right now, but I want to talk a little bit about where it comes from. You know, these ARPA funds that you're spending, that's inflationary. You know, those checks each individual got, that Donald Trump sent to everybody for COVID, that's inflationary. That is what is driving this current inflation. okay? So we need to remember that, and hopefully, and finally, I have a question, and it hasn't been adequately answered. Obviously, improvements at the jail could be spent, I believe ARPA funds could be spent on there. Can a new jail building, can ARPA funds be spent on that? Not, you know, there's a certain, like that 1 million you said that they can be spent on anything. Can those other funds be spent on that? No, and I don't think they can either. So Ray, that's an answer to your question. I don't think you can save money to spend on a new jail out of these ARPA funds. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Seeing nor hearing none. Commissioner comments? Any? Commissioner Snell?
Thank you, Commissioner, Chairman, and I just want to let you know that this resolution is supported by our treasurer and our county clerk. Take a look at it. It's an out-of-state company trying to get free access to information that others have to pay for. And, yeah, as far as ARPA money for jails, if we can't do it, we can't do it, but I think we need to exhaust where we can spend that money. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Seeing nor hearing none, we are adjourned.